today's speaker is Prof. Sithi. He is currently a professor of theoretical physics at the physics department, University Malaya. He obtained his doctorate philosophy in mathematics at Oxford University in 1998, and MSc in theoretical physics from UKM 1995, and bachelor in physics first class UKM 1992. His research specialization are in statistical physics and quantum dynamics, with research interests covering topics from stochastic and fluctuation dynamics, transport phenomena in classical and quantum systems, anomalous diffusion nonlinear dynamics in complex plasmas, quantum walk in noisy channels, tensor network formalism for quantum Ising model, and physics of information. Besides his basic research interests, Dr. Sithi participates in collaborative projects with colleagues from Mushroom Research Center to understand complex network topology and dynamics of Mycelium as superorganism, and Dr. Aga Cheng of Institute of Biological Science for thermodynamics modeling of how arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi plant symbiosis are affected under climate stresses. I hope I read it correct, Prof. Sithi. It's a new terminology for me. So his administrative experiences include serving as the Deputy Dean by Research at Faculty of Science, Dean of Frontier Science Research Cluster with IEEE, and currently a Senate member and head of the Center for Theoretical and Computational Physics. Dr. Sithi also actively involved in STEM education, and like-minded academics founded the Learning Enrichment Committee at the Department of Physics, University Malaya. So without further ado, I would like to invite Prof. Sithi to give his presentation. Over to you, Prof. Sithi. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Adibi. Thank you to IAS for inviting me to participate this very interesting enrichment program. I think, when Dr. Adibi mentioned about our activity at physics department, trying to enrich learning experience, and I think it go across the board, even at different faculties and at the university level. Soft skills, added values are actually seen as something that will open up new prospect for our graduates. Okay, so thank you to IAS for giving me this opportunity to share something. I'm not trained in public communication or mass communication, but I realize the importance of getting the message across. And that is one of the fundamental characteristics of a human being, that is to communicate, okay? And I can even go further to say we have a language thanks to the desire to communicate. And therefore, communication is very important skill. And to get our message across correctly and to create impact, I think it won't happen accidentally, and it needs to be nurtured. And in some cases, probably you have to also, train yourself to improve on this. Okay. So, all right, let me just start by giving you a quick, survey. How many of you attended the morning session today on the time management? Can anyone just give a shout? Okay, I see hands. Good. All right, I'm actually checking the numbers are going up. Any more? 9, 10, 11. Okay, I hope the number is in a very high, because I noticed there were about 70 to 80 participants in the morning session. Okay, great. I see a lot of hands there. And what was the key message that was highlighted by the speaker? Can anyone just give a quick shout? 1 or 2 key messages? Just give a quick shout. Yes?
Hi, Prof. Good afternoon, Prof.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the main takeaway message in the morning was actually our time management and also how we prioritize our research works and also on time of submitting our important theses and documents. Yeah.
Okay, great. That's very important. But let me share you one interesting story that I always recall, and it motivates me. Okay, so I went to England in 1995 to do my PhD. So when I arrived at the immigration desk or counter at Heathrow Airport, the immigration officer stamped on my passport. It was 2 years. But I'm going there for a PhD program for 3 years. So I asked the officer, the immigration officer, the British chap, sir, I'm here to do my PhD and the program is for 3 years. So he said, in fact, cynically, he said, what if you didn't finish? Or what if you couldn't finish? You know, that actually I see it as an insult. In fact, even though we know sometimes they may give you just a probationary visa for 2 years, but I had a scholarship, I had an offer letter, and I'm just going straight to the college. And that was the first experience about time. Okay, so that actually is something that I remember until today, how people are seen across borders. When you are going to do something, there are a lot of perceptions, anticipations, even doubt about whether we can achieve what we're supposed to achieve in the time given. Okay. Next, then I managed to get to my college, and then I start my day in my faculty. It was Mathematics Institute, and I went to my my graduate students' room, and there were a few people in the room, and majority of them were Brits, British. And then we introduced each other. I introduced myself. My name is Sithi. I'm from Malaysia. And the answer I get from my supposedly my host was, oh, he's from our colony. You see, I'm talking about the year 1995, okay, when you go to do your PhD. So you see, there are a lot of things that happens in your journey to do research, to do your higher degree, even to do your undergraduate degree. But all these events are very important, I would say, important points, reminders, hints, clues about your purpose. Okay, so when the speaker, I think I have to look at the name of the speaker, Dr. Yusniza, Associate Professor Dr. Yusniza stressed on the time management. I think it's very appropriate, and the university also see this as a kind of as a accreditation factor, so that they want graduates, students to graduate within 3 years. And a lot of things are put in place now, okay? In 1990s and perhaps in the 1960s, 70s, when supervisors that you have, me included, when we did our PhD, the situation was very different. You pursue a problem until you hit the goal. Okay, the goal here is GOLD, not GOAL. Okay, so we were not given sort of GOT. It's just a scholarship that will determine the constraint. But the problem most of the time in some of the universities, they give you an open problem. They want to see whether you're up to it. Okay, so time management is important. But today's story, what I'm going to discuss with you is a story, okay? It's not about the time constraints, the regulations, the rules. What I'm going to share with you is your experience in research supposed to be your narrative, your story to be told. I'm telling you a story that happens more than 20 years ago. Okay, I'm telling you this story because I remember it as part of my PhD training. Okay, and I keep telling myself, you know, you must stand tall. You must ask deep question and rise. And interestingly, and in fact, I'm actually very blessed in that sense. I finished my PhD less than 3 years. I finished first among all the people in that graduate, room. And I returned home before I had to need to even extend my visa, okay, or my scholarship. And as a reward, the university gave me one year less in the contract, okay. So if you spend more than 3 years, you get 1 year plus. So I spent less than 3 years, I get 1 year less in contract, okay. So you see, PhD training or even research is actually a journey. Okay, and I think that is what we want to discuss today. So when we talk about research, I'm trying to move my slide. Okay, so it's not moving at the moment. So I have to figure out how to actually move this slide. Okay, let me just try this again.
Is it possible to use your mouse and click the arrow, forward arrow?
And the mouse is not even responding to that. Okay. Okay, let me just quickly come out from this and I will just go back to my slide. I'll make it full. So you guys, now you can see, today I'm going to give you a public speaking on research, public communication of research. But I think there are a lot of ingredients that comes from the anecdote I gave you, okay? I mentioned to you, all right? It is about filling up your journey in research with a lot of things which you may think is not important, but if you note it down, you be mindful, you will see that you have a lot to tell, a lot to share. You know, you have something that even to motivate, to aspire people, to inspire people, to share your passion in research. And perhaps you spur this interest in research to other people, okay? So that's the purpose of this discussion today. I'm going to give you a very interesting, I would say more like an old man, advice. Don't take anything for granted. Okay. There were a few points raised today in today's meeting, morning session, like you stay focused. But sometimes when you stay focused, you can miss a lot of other interesting things. It's almost like driving on a highway. You get from one toll plaza to the next toll plaza, clear cut, no distraction, okay? Your landscape is very boring. Most of the time, what you see is oil palm plantation and, roads and roads, everybody doing the same thing, driving, probably, emotionlessly. But if you take the country road, sometimes you see a lot of things. You may even meet somebody you have never met before, or you may meet somebody you have met before. You encounter a new perspective to your research, and all this will become the narrative to your research. Okay, so I'm going to just tell a bit, some of the practices, or even the mindset that I adopted that that's keeping me excited about my work. Over 20 odd years. I'm still wish that I can do another PhD like research, spending all my time doing just research. But I think, that is probably a little bit selfish. So, okay. So what is the benefit of public communication? when you communicate, you basically have to deliver your message and you must make sure the receiver got your point. That's very important. If you just simply talk, I think that is not called communication. That probably is just broadcasting. Okay, you just let it go. Okay, let it go and let it go. I don't know whether it will reach the ears and pass through the brain and create any impact. But communicate means, you know, you have a transmitter, you have a receiver, and you have a message. So when you emphasize on public speaking, you are basically emphasizing on your own research understanding, the knowledge understanding, you know, how to present a fact, a concept, an idea in a different way, okay, in a different perspective, in a different wavelength to a different audience, okay. So it is a very important skill. And the more you talk about your subject, you feel like you are lubricating your mind. Okay, idea will start to flow, because what's happened in the brain must be translated to the mouth. There are a lot of processes that goes on. It is not just one mechanical process. Okay, and this is facilitated if you understand subject well. It's inside of you, not in a script, not on the screen. Okay, and I go back to my earlier, I would say my thesis, that is, if you experience your research, it will stay with you for some time. And idea will come and grow from that. And when you do public speaking, you build your confidence and self-esteem, okay? Talking to your own group members sometimes does not give you a chance to think out of the box. You play safe, you speak technical, you assume people understood, and if they don't understand, you assume that they do not know about it. So what? They may not be interested in the field. But when you talk to public, you have to pay attention to public response. And that gives you an opportunity even to build confidence. And in fact, some of the skills sometimes we ignore and probably too late to develop later. And we may not communicate well with our own family members, spouse, community, neighbors, and even to politicians and policymakers when it comes to translating ideas. And finally, it generates a lot of positive energy. Okay, win or lose, if you have done your best, you feel good. There's something inside you we will tell that you have done well. You have seen some reactions on the faces of the individual.
Sorry, Prof. Sithi, we couldn't see your slides.
I can see the slide.
No, I think you have to share the slide.
Okay, how long has been speaking to myself without slides?
I think more than 5 minutes.
Oh man. All right, that's the problem. If I'm just going to say a window again. Can you guys see this?
Yeah, it's loading
Yes,
now.
yes.
Okay, I'm already here.
Okay, just a second slide, right?
Okay, this is basically the second slide.
Yeah,
Good.
second slide of the content.
All
Okay.
right. Okay. Anyway, I'm not going to give a lot of facts and figures. I'm just going to use visual just to tell the idea. So, so once again, I'll try to. The screen is strangely, it's not moving. I'm using Mac, and the screen.
Can you just do the normal view? No need full view, and then just scroll down manually.
Okay. Should I use entire screen like the case before share?
Prof. Sithi, maybe you want to share the entire screen?
Okay, I'll try that. Entire screen share. So I should go here. Okay, so is it moving now?
Yes, can you, yes.
Okay, good.
All right, excellent.
All right, thank you. Sorry about that, but
No
there's not much visual that changed from here. And finally, when you do your work well, you eventually may even become the celebrity that we see that create impact at the different generation. Okay, and I can tell, when Sir David Attenborough, stressed the importance of climate change. If we are in the a sensible society, we will rise up and take the challenge. And likewise, when we see Greta Thunberg, share even a more emotional, stand on climate change, their message actually goes far. So I think public speaking, in some cases, in fact, add color, emotion, and flavor to your research, which all these three are often taken away in research seminar. Okay. So if you start to be very passionate and then dramatic in your research seminar, sometimes people say, can you move to the next slide? Where is the result? But now people are questioning, how research is impacting the real world issue. So I think public speaking skill, one way or another, will be an important component of graduate training. For you to convince somebody that what you're doing is important, for you to convince somebody to take action for their whatever they're doing, to rectify, to mitigate issues that you are studying, and you want your cause to be heard and to be championed. I think this is the important role of researcher at the graduate level. We should look at ourselves as heroes and heroines of big costs and big challenges. Okay, and it's not just about getting our thesis done, our paper published. Then you have to ask, what is the footprint of your research? How these ideas are heard? How people are actually changing due to your work? So this is very important components of public speaking. All right. So once again, we have research ups and downs. We have lots of things to tell, but your thesis have erased all the curves, only present in a very linear way, as if you had such a straight, easy path to your results. You have moved out a lot of these failures, removed that to obscurity, even erased from your so-called documented memories. But these are the best part of our life. And you look at the graph on the reality of PhDs, the landscape is interesting. There are lots of story to tell. So the point is, in your public speaking, all this ruggedness of your research must come forward. That's where you engage your audience, you create interest, you make a human out of the superheroes, effort of doing PhDs and research, that, there are failures, there are trials and, tribulations, there are disappointment, there are wrong signals, there are sabotage in some cases. All these, remember, make a good story for a novel, make a good story for a movie. Why not your story in your presentation? Okay, so this is what we're trying to tell. Don't just take the positive, then erase all the negatives, because the negative sometimes is the one that make us, mature in our thinking, in our research, and not to make the same mistake twice. Okay, so keep all this in mind, keep all this in your memory, keep all this in your research diary, and tell this once in a while to your friends, to your family, to your colleague, to the public, because they probably never had the chance to see at the negative result of your work, how many failures you have gone through before reaching to that result. And all these journeys are part of the learning curve. And I think universities these days are giving you a platform to give public speaking through various means. And this includes various competitions such as material lectures, fame lab, falling wall, and 3-minute thesis. Okay, I want to ask the participants, you can give a shout. You know, how many of you have actually participated in this competition for graduates and undergraduates? Anyone? You have to shout, huh? Because I'm not seeing the other screen. I only see this full screen. So you have to shout.
Yes, Prof. Fame Lab.
Fame Lab, good. What else? Who else? By the way, Fame Lab 2021 is on 11th of September, 2 days from now. What else? Who else? The University 3MT competition, 3-minute thesis, is organized every year, but somehow disrupted during the COVID MCO years. But I think these are competitions now taking the online platforms. Okay, it's not the same as being on the stage and get all your body to talk. But I think this is just a contingency plan. By end of the day, it's always good to be in flesh and blood on the stage. Okay, so let's look forward for those days. So there are plenty of opportunities and encouragement from the universities for you to participate in this talk. It can be daunting because you'll be watched by many, and the time is 3 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes for MLC, and I think just like what we heard this morning, practice make perfect. At the same time, time is really something we should treasure. Say things in the shortest time, the most effective way, actually a sign of very good understanding of the issues, concise thinking, and I think it's even a show of merit of our scholarship. So there are plenty of platform for you guys to participate, and I would like to encourage all of you to pay attention to this. These are big platform being promoted because of the need to communicate research to the public in a language that is not completely watered down. It is still solid science, but it is explained, engaged in a way that public actually suddenly they wake up to your research mission goals. And if you look at Fame Lab, for example, what you are expected to demonstrate is the research accuracy, which is the objective of PhD or MSc training, or even any research training. You have to get your facts, idea, concept right. So the content is still fundamental. So it's not to say you are going off tangent, orthogonal to your thesis work, you are doing something else. You are still doing scholarly, task, but the language will be slightly, more creative, more, relaxed. At the same time, it is supposed to create another impact to your work. Clarity, again, it comes from understanding. So without a very good understanding, it's very hard to actually explain something unless we just parrot the sentence as we read from the slides. So clarity comes from understanding. So ultimately, if you improve your understanding and you give a chance for that language faculty in our brain to take part, I think the communication will flow, and you can have your own style. Okay, you don't have to copy anybody, you build your own way of presenting things, and you become the individual that's different in getting the idea across. You will stand out. And when you do all this with passion and you put the audience, first, then you will be charismatic. You react as a bilateral communication. You read the facial expression of your audience. If some of you at the moment are going for Lazada 9, September 9 today, probably, because of the voice of my speech or my talk, probably you will be distracted and you say that I should go and listen to the talk. So you have to be charismatic to pull the attention, that is being distracted into your talk. And I think this is a skill eventually will go very far. If you become academician, you become even researcher presenting your work, you become a public communicator for different agencies, or you become a salesperson, your CEO, or you just want to have fun to explain ideas to public. Okay, so charisma comes with clarity, with contents, and also living through the experience of research. So your lab book should contain a lot of emojis. You should contain a lot of exclamation marks. Should contain all kind of queries, mysterious remarks. Some sort of when people picked up your lab book, they will actually see you in a kind of writing. Don't just keep that in black and white table and graph. Drop some blood, not literally, but emotionally. Okay, put that into your notebook. 20, 30 years from now, you will remember your experience, and you will still probably live, through this vividly when you tell your story to your children or your grandchildren or school children or anybody. Okay, so this is the message. Many competition basically encourage you to present your work with clarity, solid ideas, but with a story, a very powerful narrative. And a powerful narrative can only come when you take notice of every single thing that happens through your experience in research. The good, the bad, the ugly, the memorable, the one you want to forget, but you still want to take note. The kind of people you meet, the kind of people inspire you, that actually, inspire you, the people who actually, make you want to change the whole idea what you are doing, or the people who actually say you are doing something very important. All these important. Take note, snap a photo, write it down somewhere, and start to build your story. So I actually learned a lot from this person, Alan Alda. Some of your senior members in the audience may remember he's an actor in a famous military doctor show called MASH, M-A-S-H. And since then, he has been a very active promoter of communication of science, particularly science. And he will live through the experience of research. He will go to the lab, he will follow the scientists, he will ask every question to find out what exactly is the science, and then he will communicate the idea of science. And he also helped the scientists to communicate the idea. Being an actor, he knows how to use all the faculty of this, creative, skill to get the idea across. And he said, follow the 3x3 rule. Get your sentence, compose it in a basic 3 parts. For example, I'm planning to go to my hometown to see my relatives after just a simple thing. I plan to go to my hometown to see my relative after such a long, separation, physical separation. So in that sentence, you can see there is a character who's actually taking part, and then, the event, and then, the purpose. So it has these three important elements in the sentence. It doesn't mean all the sentence has to have this, but the power sentence must have these components, three components. And if you want to stress a certain reason why solar energy is important, you give three different reasons for that. Okay? You don't just give one reason. You give three different reasons in a different context. One from a general context, another one technical context, the third one may be a futuristic context. So that at least something will sink into the understanding or receiving end of the audience. And then difficult concept, you have to hammer it few times. Maybe at the early part of the talk, the mid part of the talk, and the end part of the talk. Hammer it, some important and difficult concepts, so that it sink into the understanding or memory of the listener. So take, if you search for this book, I think, it's something worth reading, not just for the purpose of this research, but I think for the purpose of communicating well with whoever we meet. Whoever we meet. We have met, too bad we can't change that. But I think, the next moment, if you meet somebody, think hard whether your communication is actually reaching out. So now we go to your research. In your research, again, we go for the 3x3 rule. You need to know why you are doing this research in a macro context. And, what have you done to do research, a micro context? And then what is the outcome and impact in a macro context? Okay. So this is the standard process of product delivery for industry. In fact, this was introduced to us during one of the workshop by the chairman of University Malaya board, when he spoke about researchers are only focusing on activity and output, but they are missing out the input, the big picture. And then we are also missing out in the outcome and impact. We usually give a very simple statement about the outcome. But remember, if you have two macro views sandwiched between a micro views, the macro views is the one that's going to be, understandable to general audience, not the micro. So in our scientific research, we have been spending too much time on the micro view. We give a very detailed problem statement. We tell about the objective. We actually spend too much time on the method and then show the result and finding. It's okay for the scientific talk, but for the public talk or communicating to broader audience, I think they want to see the two ends that you are seeing. The input, which is the big picture, macro view. What is the issue? What moves you to take up this PhD work? Why you are driven? Like today, this morning, it was given in a rather pessimistic way, as if you got yourself into trouble. You have all the freedom to choose to do it or not to do it. So it must be something that aspires you beyond the topical issue. There must be something that inspires you. Maybe your friend, maybe your family, maybe your community, maybe the professors who are actually so excited, you say, I want to go into it. Maybe the mass media that keep, pumping the excitement in certain research, and you get influenced. All these are important part of the story. Don't miss that out. Do your homework. Keep your eye open, keep your ears open, keep your mind open to pick up message about big pictures. Okay? Pick up the big pictures. If you're waiting at the bus station and you're talking about climate change, Look at the people around, how they feel with the hot weather. Just observe. Take some pictures because it's going to be useful for your story. Okay. So if you work on a climate issues, the climate supposed to be your backdrop of your thinking. Your handphone can record a lot of things. Keep this information as part of the journalism, okay, for your research. And the end point again, impact. Spend some time with the community that you actually supposedly, dealing with, or your research is going to help them. Pay some attention, pay a visit, read about these issues, read about the people affected by, for example, waste, mismanagement, and there are communities that actually live on the wasteland collecting, waste material to be sold. So read about them, go and watch the documentary, pick up any such places around your town. Go and take some, get a memory of that experience, bring to your report, bring to your talk. Okay, so the key message here is, if you want to be a good presenter, you start narrating your story right from day one. Before you choose your research topic, you must have a narrative of your journey in graduate school. Once you pick up your topic, you already open up a chapter in your narrative. By the time you finish your research, you have your thesis and you have your personal research, more like a non-fiction novel of your own experience. Write about it if you wish to, speak about it if you want to, or share with this excitement with anybody you feel wish to share this, or even may benefit. All these are exciting part of research. I take research as like being born again and again and again. Every time you take up a new problem, you feel you start like an infant. When you start to understand the problem, you grow as a toddler. When you start to take hold of the tools and techniques, you become the teenager and the middle age. By the time you finish the work, you become the wise old man. And I think if you put this perspective, you don't take this research as a job. It becomes your call. When it's your call, you must have a story to tell. Okay? And that story is the narrative for your public speaking, wherever, whenever possible. Okay? So all the good speakers will have clear message. You may do research in many different fields, many different topics, techniques, method, but you don't want to talk about all of that in your talk. Pick one very powerful message. Pick one. There may be many results. Some results are not so exciting, doesn't have anecdotes, doesn't have a historical connection, doesn't have that kind of ruggedness in the storyline. You can keep that for the thesis. But when you give a presentation for public, you have to pull the best storyline among all this, and you don't want a linear story. You want a non-linear and a rugged storyline with a villain. If there is a villain, the villain could be contamination. The villain could be one of your sample actually was stolen, or sabotage. Don't worry, there are plenty of good, bad, and ugly in research. The villain could be one of this, which one day you're supposed to set the temperature at this, but someone else came and switched off all the power because they say there's nobody working. Okay? And then try to build metaphor. Metaphor means you use something to explain abstract concept. And I think metaphor comes from observation. If you observe, if you, for example, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk about friction. So I'm going to actually watch F1. I'm going to actually observe and see. And if you can see this is actually a Lego, F1 car. If I'm a physicist talking about friction, I will go and find one metaphor. It's my job to go and search for metaphor to describe something to people. And this is something that almost everyone knows. Okay? Almost everyone knows cars. And in fact, we create a level up from ordinary car into a F1 car. And that will bring stories to go along. Okay? And then we present like having a conversation. It's too bad, like when I'm actually presenting now, I wish that I can talk in front of you and I can see how you react to my voice and also the tone change and the stress points and the pause. But, with this online, and I can't see even you guys on the screen, basically I'm actually more in the like in a solitary confinement, having a conversation with myself. Okay. But then again, you can have this conversation in the shower before you go for the real stage, for your talk. Have a conversation as if there are people. Okay. And of course, the communication is not just, in the written text. Your slide may do some part, but I think the most powerful, tools we have is this mouth and the language. Okay. You say good things happen. You say bad things can happen. Okay. Like the Malay proverb, sebab mulut badan binasa, sebab mulut mungkin negara pun boleh binasa. Sebab mulut, I think, a lot of things can, so it's a very powerful tool. Why not use it to do positive change? All together with the power of language and the whole presentation, I think, communication should encompass everything. Okay. So if the thing returns to our physical face-to-face, and I think that will be the best, time to practice and also to improve this skill. Ultimately, we still have to move in the society. Okay. We cannot stay online forever. So I think that's quite important. Let's listen to this talk of the Fame Lab. It's about 3 minutes. Can you guys actually hear this? Can you hear it?
If you had
Yes.
to fall
Okay.
into the arms of someone in this crowd, wouldn't you rather fall into the familiar arms of a friend? Well, that's how antibodies choose the antigens that they want to bind to be locked in a molecular embrace. In fact, antibodies can only bind antigens, which are pieces of bacteria or virus, that they've met before, that they recognize as familiar. It is this familiarity and exclusive match that forms the basis of many of our innovations in biomedical research. Particularly for my research, the specific recognition of antibody to antigen can be used as biomarkers and turned into simple diagnostic tests, like pregnancy tests, but to diagnose an infectious disease. Now, usually, antibodies recognize antigens better than you would recognize the face of a loved one in a room full of strangers. But a problem arises when sometimes antibodies mistakenly recognize a similar but different antigen, the way I might mistakenly recognize Brad Pitt as my husband when I'm not wearing my glasses. Now, this is a common problem in developing an antibody-based test, but especially to diagnose TB, a disease that afflicted 10.4 million people just in 2016. This is partly because the bacteria that causes TB, the Mycobacterium tuberculosis, has many mycobacterial cousins that our bodies constantly meet in the environment. This confuses an antibody-based test and gives rise to false positive results, which reduces its accuracy. That's why, even until today, we are stuck with methods to diagnose TB that are time-consuming, expensive, and laborious. And most importantly, they will miss the majority of people living with TB in areas without lab facilities, depriving them of a cure. That's why my research is investigating different mycobacterial antigens and how our antibodies recognize them. Hopefully, one day we can discover an antibody-antigen match that can be turned into a simple diagnostic test to diagnose TB in big hospitals as well in remote villages without running electricity. Such a discovery could be the difference between containment and spread or life and death. Such a discovery could be an antibody-antigen match made in heaven.
Okay, so what is the takeaway from this? Remember, the speaker actually just pulled one clear message. It's all about antigen, antibody. Very clear. Every time this is the idea that keep popping up. And the examples she used, you know, like the key and lock, that is a sort of metaphor. And then she also used that familiar faces. She used a lot of metaphors. In fact, she quoted Brad Pitt and then her husband. You know, sometimes, you know, antibodies can be mistaken if it's not identified properly. So she's using a lot of metaphor. I think she picked up all this just to add some, you know, humor, some familiarity to the topic. And then that is a very creative part of presentation. So the creative part sometimes often left out in scientific thinking because we thought it's redundant, it clouds the main picture. For public presentation, I think this will be, in fact, the standout. This will be something that people will notice as a familiar concept, and it is explained in the context of a metaphor. And you remember she started with you know, the introduction part, which is the earlier input in that 5-component presentation. That is the big picture about how, you know, serious is this issue of TB, and you know, some of the healthcare issues. And then she finished with what will be the benefit of this as a part of the tail, and she spent on the body part, which is the second component of the 3, you know, important pieces in this presentation. So this is a very interesting and also a powerful. She won the Fame Lab for that year, and she's actually a researcher, academic in USM. She writes a lot in STAR, and when you read even her writing in STAR, she carries that kind of idea of, you know, make things simple, you know, but not simpler, you know, and the metaphors are used quite often. All right, so the carry, you know, the carry home message from this presentation is essentially storytelling. So in order to tell an interesting story, I wouldn't want to go to the very interesting. In order to tell an interesting story that will attract some attention, you must have these ingredients, such as the historical aspect of your research, the personal experience that you encounter in research, the emotional content has to be blended nicely. There should be a sharing sort of presentation. It's not just you want to say it because you have to pass the exam. You have a genuine interest to tell your audience, your examiner, your listener, something that you know, the 10 minutes, the 20 minutes or 1 hour they spend listening to you actually is a very significant moment of their time. Okay, and the storytelling is creative writing. So in order to be, at least to build up this skill, creative writing or creative thinking, I think we have to read. We have to read all kinds of things. We have to read literature. We have to read historical account. We have to watch drama and analyze how the story is written. We have to watch blockbusters. how they portray something, how they arrange the sequel or idea, how they build up the story. And I think public communication essentially is a story writing quite similar to writing a drama or a theater. It has the building up of the climax from the problem statement, and then your methodology is the rescue operation, your result is a resolution, and finally when you conclude, the knowledge level elevated, the listener's knowledge is elevated thanks to your exposition, your heroic attempt in your research, and your achievement as part of the solution, and your anticipation, your view about the impact as something very calm and inviting from the audience. So basically, it is a drama. Research is a drama. It follows similar to a script writing. Its only thing is we forgotten or we left out the script. We only write the black and white and the gray matter of your research. If you cannot present it in your thesis, but why not present it in a general talk, public talk, 3-minute thesis, Fame Lab? Okay, so my point is, don't take anything as redundant. It's not important. Be mindful. It's not taxing. The more mindful you become, it's not going to tax you because of the plasticity of your brain and of your emotion. All this will come back to you to enrich your storytelling. Okay, and I think IAS and also our own committee do a lot of public communication workshop. So to get the detail custom made to different research field, I think we can look forward for future workshop, and I'll be happy to work with IAS on that, on customize, for the 3MT Fame Lab or any other things. Okay, so I don't want to drag on. I'm just going to quickly go into just to tell you, pay attention to headlines in newspaper, in some of the very high impact journals, high impact magazines like Science, Nature, Scientific American, or some of the other topics in literature and humanity. Good newspapers, not some strange funny newspaper, good editorial. Look at the way they write the title, look at the way they present, and watch TED Talks. Pay attention to your surrounding and create this idea for your narrative. Pay attention, observant, and look at the historical account of your own research progress and your own research field. There are plenty of stories and drama in your own research disciplines. Pay attention to this. Bring that in your presentation. Some of the metaphors can be very dramatic, very funny, humorous. Pick up this, and then you will have plenty to tell. You only have to write it for a different audience in a different story. Okay, so I would always encourage you to watch some very exciting TED Talk. I won't repeat here, and also some of the books that written on how to make impactful presentation. Focus on the why. What and how has been trained by the universities, methodology, research methodology. But the why, very few will teach you. You have to discover what is the inspiration. You have to discover what is the purpose, the bigger purpose of your life and your work, and the skill that you are picking up through your research. What is your core value? What is your belief in a general universal context? Bring this into your presentation, and I'm sure there will be plenty of people who will be inspired, and they will also, go on and do something thanks to your presentation. Okay, so I think we have a role to play. So, so this is my last slide. I'm just, this is a very interesting point. Where do we get our research inspiration most of the time? if you look at the far right, you notice, it's not in the box, in that gray brick wall filled with, similar kind of thinking and doing, repetitive work, writing in the same way. This is not where you get inspiration. You get inspiration if you look outside, far from your own space, observe how does the crowd move, and then how does people react to situation, and then you come back and reanalyze, reflect on your own research, and I think you will bring in so much color, emotion, and I think satisfaction of doing something, even though you think it's hard, but I think you will tell yourself, have a good reason to be stuck in this, in this problem. All right. And I think PhD shouldn't be, an investment just for the sake of, filling in time or filling in that gap. It's supposed to be even, rediscovery of yourself and the people around you. And you want to tell that, I'm getting better thanks to all these people around me, and I'm going to do the same to others. And your research is one of the best way to do that. Okay, don't reduce that to the plain pages of reports. Don't just limit that to your presentation in seminar. Participate in a more general seminar. Go outside the box and talk to your Grab driver, talk to the people, engage in a discussion and explain something to them that they will feel that I had a good Grab passenger today who shared with me exciting thing, why we all must look up, towards challenges and learn from challenges. I think COVID is just telling us that. It's telling us how vulnerable we are, but the story behind this is human will rise, all life will rise. Okay, because we have somehow this built-in to survive, built-in mechanism to survive. And I think the story is the one that's going to support that. Okay, that will be my presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to my babbling here. I hope that is something we gain both sides. And I'm going to write my story, for the next few years on the areas that I work, and I'm going to carry on sharing with you and few other people, because telling stories is a duty for us to pay back the investment, why people, fund this research and why they should fund our hobby. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Sithi. It's very insightful and enlightened us on this science communication. And I hope all of you enjoy this amazing presentation. I would like to invite Malcolm to ask his question. Malcolm, are you there?
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Hi, Prof. Sithi. I was interested to ask something about this public communication thingy. So I want to ask about your opinion on how appropriate is it for like postgraduate students like us who are not experts yet to communicate our research to the general public via blogs.
Okay. In blogs, I'm not so familiar with blogs because I myself is a proponent of the primal skill. Communicating through verbal carries so much. In fact, the way you speak will tell you whether you are actually really speaking the truth or you just lip sync to all the facts or you're picking up. Okay, so I think, maybe on the blog side, I may not, be so familiar, but it is picking up. It is picking up, and many people are using that as a channel. In fact, it is important component of marketing for research in the institutional level. Many universities have blogs, and it also have a certain ranking. We call this alt metric, which actually look at how your story is being picked up by the news streams. And I think they won't pick up your journal. They will pick up the story written in more, general media or for the public media. And if your story is picked up by many different news streams, the altimetric, the visibility of the research improves. And I think for that also, maybe IAS should also look into this written public communication of research, and also the verbal public communication of research. So I would strongly encourage that. Thank you, Malcolm, for pointing out. And I think, I'm sorry, I belong to the old generation, which I believe, ultimately when we speak, we become more human. We'll be very careful when we want to say something. But when we write on the keyboard, it's so easy to pull the trigger. Okay? All right?
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Yeah, I think, Malcolm, besides blogs, social media also is a good platform to disseminate about your research and your passion. So it's about you understand your crowd, your followers. You can use if you want to write short sentence, you can use Twitter. If you want to share using picture or photo, you can use Instagram, you can use Facebook, any platform that can send out message over there. So I experienced with my research, I created my platform, Dr. Sithi, and I share with them what I'm doing now, and how this industry is important to the country, to the society. So it's about you sharing your passion, Malcolm. Yeah. Okay. The next question from Muhammad Ikram. Ikram, are you there to read out your question?
Hello.
Yes.
Hi.
Yes. Okay. Hi, Prof. This is Ikram. Okay, this is maybe out of topic, but maybe you could share some tips for presentation in Viva. Is it any difference than communication in public? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ikram. I sit in quite a number of Viva in different faculties. I sit in, as a Senate rep. And if people just dive in straight, assuming everyone in the panel, familiar with your work, they probably were just listening to you, and, you may probably have presented, your work and so on. And there will be little that they can absorb if they are in a different field. So my suggestion is, even for Viva, we should have proportion of that, the early part, which is the opener, the input, and the impact, nicely kept as the kind of boundary condition. You go in, you give the general perspective, so members of the panel will probably know, oh, he's going to talk in this area. At least they are acclimatized to your topic. And you can spend your time on the body of your work, which is the problem statement, the research question, the methodology, and the result. You can take up. But don't forget these two ends, because that two ends is almost like a border to something, It's like icing to the cake, Sort of. One is it neutralizes any kind of, anxiety or ambiguity on the entrance. People, they know you're going to talk about this field. And it's important because of the general context. And then you zoom into your problem. You give big picture, then you zoom in. Okay? Then you discuss about your research. Then you zoom out so that they know where your work will be heading. And few times I notice the panel asks very simple question. So what's the impact of your research? Why you are doing this research? That's the question they ask. Because the technical question often can only be asked by the examiner who read your thesis. Okay? And I think, we do not want to just focus on experts. And I think that will be a more selfish attitude, because we want to serve broader audience. If 10 people sitting in that room, you basically will know someone maybe from arts, but you are presenting from mathematics, I think we should do some justice and a little bit of charity in sharing knowledge, such a way that, some of the examples that you're going to custom design for this individual will serve that purpose. And it comes down to the clarity and content. The more you understand something, you can explain it in many, many different ways. And you become a better communicator. Okay? You can read the mind of your listener, and then you adjust your tune and adjust your wavelength to that. And that is a very powerful skill. And now you see politicians, they talk on a different wavelength, public asks different, raise different issue, they answer in a different, different answers. So this mismatch are creating a lot of conflict. But if you tune, then you see the power of communication. Problem can be solved. Okay, so I would suggest proportion that element which we call that soft part of your talk, proportion it such a way. If it's a viva, add a little bit, don't over, add ingredient. If it's for the research talk, include some so that it won't be very plain. Bring some humor, bring some emotion to show that, whatever it is, I'm still doing it because I find it interesting. So I think you have the right to, to express that part, but not completely overwhelmed by the flavors. Okay?
Yeah, I think practice make better. So nobody were born with good communication skill unless you harness it, you sharpen your skill. So students are encouraged to participate in all events that involve communication. For example, like Prof. Sithi shared just now, Fame Lab and 3 minutes thesis competition, because it's for your to build your confidence and to see where are the weaknesses of your communication. So it's a good training for the students. Okay, do we have more questions from the floor or from participants? So in the chat box, there's no more question. Anybody want to ask question? So if not, Prof. Sithi, is it possible for you to unshare your screen, and then we can ask the participant to turn on their video so that we can take a group photo before we leave?
Thank you very much to everyone. There are a few, thank you. So thank you. It's my pleasure as well to share. In fact, my key idea is, when we do research, shouldn't look at it as a torture, as a penalty, as a, you're put in that position. We are at this stage, we choose to do it. Why not do it and have fun? There always be downs. I think that makes us more human. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.